I, 32, male, never thought I'd be sharing this, but life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. 5 years ago, my world shattered when my fiancée Ellie cheated on me with my own cousin, Owen, the day before our wedding. The betrayal cut deep, not just because of what they did, but because Owen had always been the golden child of our extended family, someone who could do no wrong in everyone's eyes. Owen and I were close, or so I thought. He was the charismatic one, the achiever, the one who made our grandparents beam with pride. I admired him, looked up to him even. When he stood beside me as my best man during the wedding rehearsal, I remember thinking how lucky I was to have such a supportive family. Little did I know that while I was thanking him for his friendship, he was already planning to destroy everything I held dear. The morning of what should have been my wedding day, I found Ellie's tear-stained notebook. She confessed to sleeping with Owen and said she couldn't go through with the wedding. They had apparently been seeing each other behind my back for months. The worst part? Owen had convinced her that I wasn't good enough for her, that she deserved someone more accomplished like him. The scandal tore our family apart. Some sided with Owen, claiming that love happens and that I should forgive them. Others, including my parents and younger siblings, cut ties with Owen and his immediate family completely. The divide grew deeper when Ellie and Owen married 6 months later, flaunting their relationship as if the pain they caused meant nothing. For 5 years, I focused on healing and rebuilding my life. I moved to a different city, started a successful business, and eventually met Rebecca. She was different from Ellie in every way, genuine, loyal, and understanding of my past trauma. When we decided to get married, I wanted a small, intimate ceremony with just our closest friends and immediate family. That's when my aunt and uncle, Owen's parents, approached me with what seemed like an olive branch. They offered to pay for our entire wedding, insisting it was their way of making amends for what their son had done. I was skeptical at first, but they appeared genuinely remorseful. My parents advised against accepting their offer, but Rebecca thought it might be a good way to heal old wounds. The wedding planning began and everything seemed perfect. My aunt took charge of most arrangements, always consulting us about our preferences. She even suggested holding the ceremony at their beautiful countryside estate, which had been in our family for generations. The gesture felt meaningful, like a true attempt at reconciliation. What I didn't know was that behind all these generous offers and seemingly thoughtful gestures, a different plan was unfolding. My aunt and uncle weren't trying to make amends. They were orchestrating an elaborate scheme to reintegrate Owen back into the family. They saw my wedding as the perfect opportunity to present their son as a changed man, complete with his picture-perfect family. I might have never discovered their true intentions if it weren't for my cousin Emma, who overheard a late-night conversation between my aunt and Owen's wife, Ellie. They were discussing how this would be the perfect chance for Owen to apologize publicly, to show everyone how he'd grown and learned from his mistakes. Ellie was excited about the prospect of finally being accepted back into the family fold, especially now that they had 2 children. The realization that my aunt and uncle were using my wedding as a stage for their son's redemption arc made me physically ill. 5 years of therapy, of learning to trust again, and they thought they could just orchestrate this twisted family reunion at my expense. But before I could confront them or change any plans, fate had other ideas. What happened next was something I never could have orchestrated, proving that sometimes karma works in mysterious ways. This was just the beginning of a series of events that would expose the true nature of their intentions and show me who my real family was all along. Update 1. The events that unfolded next still feel surreal even as I write this. After discovering my aunt and uncle's true intentions, I was torn between confronting them and cancelling the wedding altogether. Rebecca, my voice of reason through all of this, suggested we wait and see how things played out. She had a feeling that their plan would backfire spectacularly, and boy, was she right. The wedding day arrived and everything seemed picture perfect on the surface. The countryside estate was decorated beautifully with fairy lights strung through the ancient oak trees and white roses everywhere. The guest list had somehow grown considerably larger than we'd initially planned, but I was too preoccupied with my own happiness to notice the additional faces. What my aunt and uncle didn't account for was that news travels fast in small towns, and most of our guests knew exactly what had happened 5 years ago. They also didn't realize that Rebecca's family, particularly her three older brothers, were extremely protective of her, and by extension, me. They had heard the full story of my past and had their own opinions about family members who betrayed their own. The ceremony was scheduled for 4 p.m., but around 3:30 there was a commotion at the estate's main entrance. Owen, Ellie, and their two children had arrived, dressed to the nines and carrying gift bags. My aunt rushed to greet them wearing a smile that could only be described as triumphant. She clearly thought her master plan was working perfectly. What happened next was like watching dominoes fall in slow motion. First, Rebecca's oldest brother, Marcus, who was helping with parking arrangements, spotted them. He immediately alerted his siblings and several other guests. Word spread through the gathering crowd like wildfire. Before Owen and his family could even reach the garden where the ceremony was to take place, they were surrounded by a wall of disapproving faces. My college friend, Mike, who had been there to pick up the pieces after my first wedding disaster, stepped forward first. Without raising his voice or causing a scene, he simply asked Owen, "Did you receive an invitation?" The question hung in the air like a heavy cloud. Ellie clutched Owen's arm tighter while my aunt rushed to intervene, claiming she had invited them. That's when Rebecca's middle brother, Anthony, a usually quiet accountant, spoke up. He calmly pointed out that as the ones paying for the wedding, they might have the right to contribute to the guest list, but they had no right to invite people who had been explicitly excluded by the bride and groom. The murmurs of agreement from the crowd grew louder. My aunt tried to salvage the situation, launching into a prepared speech about family reconciliation and second chances. But her words fell flat as more guests began sharing their own stories about how Owen and Ellie's actions had affected not just me, but our entire community. One of my mother's friends recalled how Ellie had continued to show up at community events with Owen, flaunting their relationship while I was still struggling to piece my life back together. The most powerful moment came when my grandmother, who had remained neutral during the initial fallout, slowly made her way through the crowds. She looked at Owen, her favorite grandchild, and simply said she was disappointed. Not in what he had done years ago, but in his decision to show up today knowing it would cause pain. The weight of her words seemed to physically affect Owen, who had always valued her approval above all else. Ellie, who had been clutching her designer handbag like a shield, finally broke under the pressure of collective disapproval. In an attempt to defend their presence, she blurted out that they had every right to be there, since Owen's parents were paying for everything. This admission only served to expose the manipulative nature of my aunt and uncle's generous offer. The situation reached its breaking point when Rebecca's younger brother, a professional event planner, stepped forward with an alternative solution. He announced that he and his siblings had already prepared a backup venue, a beautiful lakeside restaurant where Rebecca and I had our first date, just in case something like this happened. The gesture brought tears to my eyes, showing me what true family support looked like. What happened next was a testament to the strength of real relationships. Without any drama or confrontation, our true friends and family simply began moving towards their cars, ready to follow us to the new venue. No shouting, no accusations, just a quiet, dignified exodus that spoke volumes about where loyalties truly lay. As we left the estate, I caught a glimpse of my aunt and uncle standing with Owen and Ellie, their perfect plan in shambles around them. They had tried to use my happiness as a prop in their son's redemption story, but instead, they had only succeeded in showing everyone exactly why we had distanced ourselves in the first place. The wedding that followed at the lakeside restaurant was everything Rebecca and I had originally wanted: intimate, joyful, and surrounded by people who genuinely cared about our happiness. Sometimes the best revenge isn't confrontation or anger, but simply moving forward with people who respect and value you. Update 2. It's been 3 weeks since our wedding day, and the aftermath has been both enlightening and vindicating. The events that followed our departure from the estate reveal just how deep the web of manipulation ran, and how my aunt and uncle's plans had been years in the making. After we left for the lakeside venue, chaos erupted at the estate. Several guests who had remained behind later told me that my aunt had a complete meltdown. She began revealing details of their elaborate scheme, perhaps thinking she could still salvage the situation by explaining their good intentions. What she actually did was expose just how calculated their actions had been. It turned out that they had been planning this reconciliation for over a year. They had specifically chosen our wedding as the perfect opportunity because they knew many extended family members who had cut ties with Owen would attend. They had even hired a professional photographer to capture what they hoped would be a touching moment of family reunion, planning to use those photos to showcase their son's redemption on social media. The most shocking revelation came from Emma, who shared more details about conversations she had overheard. My aunt and uncle had actually been making monthly deposits into a separate account for 2 years, preparing for the possibility of funding someone's wedding just to create this opportunity. They had initially approached my cousin Lisa when she got engaged, but she had declined their offer. When they heard about my engagement to Rebecca, they saw it as divine intervention. What better story than the betrayed cousin welcoming back his betrayer? Ellie's role in all of this became clearer too. She had been actively participating in the planning, seeing it as her chance to finally be accepted by the family members who had shunned her. She had even prepared a speech about growth and forgiveness, which she had planned to deliver during the reception. The fact that she thought this would be appropriate showed just how disconnected they all were from reality. The aftermath affected Owen more than anyone expected. Several guests reported seeing him argue with Ellie in the estate's parking lot after everyone left. Apparently, he had been hesitant about the whole plan, but Ellie and his parents had convinced him it would work. The public rejection, especially his grandmother's disappointment, seemed to finally make him realize the true consequences of his actions. My aunt and uncle's reputation in the family suffered irreparable damage. Their manipulation wasn't just about Owen anymore. They had tried to use my wedding, my happiness, and my healing process as tools for their own agenda. Even family members who had previously maintained relationships with them began to distance themselves, disgusted by the calculated nature of their scheme. The story spread through our extended family network, and reaching relatives who hadn't attended the wedding. Surprisingly, many of Owen's defenders from 5 years ago reached out to apologize, saying they finally understood the full scope of the betrayal. It wasn't just about the infidelity anymore, it was about the continued manipulation and disrespect for boundaries. Rebecca's family's support during this time was incredible. Her brother's foresight in arranging a backup venue had saved our wedding day, but their support didn't stop there. They helped us document everything that had happened, including the financial aspect, to protect us from any potential claims my aunt and uncle might make about the wedding expenses they had covered. The most unexpected development came from my grandmother. After years of trying to maintain a relationship with all her grandchildren, she finally took a firm stance. She withdrew the inheritance she had planned to leave to Owen and his family, instead creating a trust for educational purposes that would benefit all her grandchildren's future children, except Owen's. Her decision sent shockwaves through the family, as she had always been the one pushing hardest for reconciliation. My parents, who had warned me against accepting the wedding funding, showed remarkable restraint in not saying, "I told you so." Instead, they focused on helping us move forward. They offered to help cover any outstanding wedding expenses, but Rebecca's family had already taken care of everything. The solidarity between our families strengthened our belief that we had built something genuine and valuable, despite the attempts to taint it. Professional photographs from our lakeside wedding arrived last week, and they captured something my aunt and uncle's planned photo op never could have: genuine joy and love, surrounded by people who truly cared about us. One photo in particular stands out: a candid shot of Rebecca and me laughing with our families during the impromptu reception, completely unfazed by the earlier drama. It's a testament to how far I've come from that devastating day 5 years ago. The incident has sparked numerous conversations within our extended family about boundaries, respect, and the true meaning of family. Many realize that blind forgiveness and forced reconciliation often do more harm than good, and the genuine relationships need to be built on trust and respect, not orchestrated moments of false redemption. The aftermath of our wedding also affected my aunt and uncle's professional lives in ways they hadn't anticipated. My uncle, a respected member of the local business community, faced uncomfortable questions at his social club. Several long-time business associates who had attended the wedding as family friends began distancing themselves from joint ventures. Their concern wasn't just about the wedding incident, but about the pattern of manipulation it revealed. As one former partner reportedly said, "If he could orchestrate something this elaborate to manipulate his own nephew's wedding, what else might he be capable of?" The situation grew more complex when Ellie's parents finally broke their years-long silence about the original affair. They reached out to me through Rebecca's family, expressing their deep shame about their daughter's actions, both past and present. They shared how they had opposed her marriage to Owen, seeing it as built on betrayal, but had been essentially strong-armed into supporting it by my aunt and uncle's social and financial influence. Their confession added another layer to the pattern of manipulation that had surrounded Owen and Ellie's relationship from the start. Perhaps the most unexpected development came from our wedding vendors. When word got out about how my aunt and uncle had tried to hijack the celebration, several of them came forward with stories about unusual requests and suspicious phone calls they'd received in the weeks leading up to the wedding. The florist revealed that someone had tried to arrange for specific flowers, Ellie's favorites, to be added to the bride's bouquet without our knowledge. The wedding coordinator admitted that she had been approached about making last-minute seating changes to place Owen and Ellie's family at prominent tables. These revelations showed just how meticulously planned their scheme had been. The whole experience has sparked important discussions in our extended family about the nature of forgiveness and reconciliation. Many realize that true healing can't be forced or orchestrated. It has to come naturally, with genuine remorse and changed behavior. The contrast between my aunt and uncle's elaborate scheme and the simple sincerity of Ellie's parents' apology has become a powerful example of the difference between manufactured and authentic attempts at making amends. Update 3. 2 months have passed since our wedding, and the ripple effects of that day continue to surface in unexpected ways. What started as an attempted forced reconciliation has evolved into a complete restructuring of family dynamics, with surprising revelations and unexpected alliances forming in its wake. The most significant development came from Owen himself. A week ago, he reached out through a mutual cousin requesting to meet privately. No parents, no Ellie, just us. After careful consideration and discussion with Rebecca, I agreed to meet him at a neutral location, a quiet coffee shop in a neighboring town. The man I met was drastically different from the confident, manipulative cousin I remembered. Owen arrived alone, looking tired and genuinely remorseful. He revealed that the wedding incident had forced him to confront the reality of his actions and their long-lasting impact. The public rejection had been a wake-up call, showing him how his parents' constant enabling had prevented him from facing the consequences of his actions. During our conversations, Owen shared that his marriage to Ellie was falling apart. The failed wedding plan had exposed cracks in their relationship that had been there all along. Ellie had been pushing for the reconciliation attempt, hoping to regain her social standing in the community. When it backfired, she blamed Owen for not being convincing enough in his reformed persona. More surprisingly, Owen admitted that he had been living a carefully curated lie for the past 5 years. His seemingly perfect life, the successful career, the happy marriage, the beautiful children, was largely a facade maintained by his parents' financial support and constant intervention. The wedding incident had finally made him realize how artificial his entire life had become. The fallout affected my aunt and uncle's standing in the community. Beyond just family circles, their social circle, once extensive and influential, began to crumble as people learned about their manipulation. Several of their closest friends who had attended our wedding stopped associating with them, disturbed by their willingness to use their nephew's wedding for their own agenda. Rebecca's family, particularly her brothers, received unexpected recognition for their handling of the situation. Their quick thinking and discreet execution of the venue change became a talked about example of how to handle family drama with grace. Several local wedding planners even reached out to Rebecca's youngest brother, impressed by his crisis management skills. The most healing aspect of the aftermath has been the strengthening of relationships with family members who chose to stand with us. Cousins who had remained distant after the first wedding disaster have become regular parts of our lives, creating a support system based on mutual respect and genuine care. Our Sunday family dinners have grown larger, filled with laughter and actual honest conversations about feelings and boundaries. My grandmother's decision about the inheritance continued to have widespread effects. Other elderly relatives began reviewing their own estate plans, some making similar changes to reflect their values about family loyalty and respect. The message was clear. Actions have consequences. Even within family structures that had traditionally prioritized maintaining appearances over addressing wrongdoing, Ellie attempted to do damage control through social media, posting long explanations about misunderstandings and family healing, but her efforts only highlighted her inability to acknowledge the harm she had caused. Her posts were met with silence from family members and eventually disappeared as she made her accounts private. The most recent development came yesterday, when Owen informed the family that he was seeking therapy and considering separation from Ellie. His parents' response was telling. They immediately tried to intervene with offers of marriage counseling and financial support. This time, however, Owen declined their help, stating he needed to handle his problems on his own for once. Rebecca and I have found peace in how everything unfolded. While we never wanted drama at our wedding, the event served to clarify who truly deserved a place in our lives. We've started building our own traditions, creating celebrations that focus on genuine connections rather than obligatory family ties. Looking back, what my aunt and uncle intended as a grand gesture of reconciliation instead became a powerful lesson about authenticity and respect. Their carefully orchestrated plan to rehabilitate their son's image failed because it was built on manipulation rather than genuine remorse and growth. In contrast, our hastily relocated wedding succeeded because it was surrounded by real love and support. The experience has taught us that family isn't about grand gestures or forced reunions. It's about the quiet consistency of people who show up for you with understanding and respect. The family we've built around us now, a mixture of blood relatives who stood by us and chosen family who proved their loyalty, is stronger than any superficial reunion could have been. The most recent family gathering at our new home last weekend really drove this point home. As we sat in our backyard surrounded by people who had chosen to be there, the conversation turned to how different things might have been if my aunt and uncle's plan had succeeded. One of Rebecca's brothers pointed out that their scheme, failing so publicly, had actually given everyone permission to stop pretending, to stop maintaining toxic relationships just for the sake of family harmony. My parents, who had been carrying the weight of the family division for years, seem lighter now. They no longer feel obligated to play peacemaker or maintain uncomfortable relationships for the sake of extended family unity. Ma mentioned that she finally felt free to take down the old family photos that included Owen and Ellie, replacing them with new memories we've created. The professional wedding photos have become somewhat famous in our social circle. Not for capturing any drama, but for showing what real celebration looks like. The joy in those impromptu moments at the lakeside venue is palpable. One photo in particular, of all our guests spontaneously forming a dance line on the restaurant's deck, has become symbolic of how sometimes the best moments come from unexpected changes. In an ironic twist, our wedding story has actually brought about the kind of healing my aunt and uncle claimed they wanted, just not in the way they intended. Instead of forcing a superficial reconciliation, it allowed people to be honest about their feelings and choose their relationships intentionally. The family that emerged from this experience is smaller but more genuine, bound together by choice rather than obligation. Rebecca and I have decided to use our experience to help others. We're working with her event planner brother to create a guide for couples dealing with complex family dynamics during wedding planning. The key message is about maintaining boundaries and staying true to your own values, even when faced with pressure from family members. Owen's journey towards independence continues to unfold. He's moved out of the house he shared with Ellie and declined his parents' offer to stay at their guest house. Instead, he's renting a small apartment and, for the first time in his life, learning to handle his responsibilities without his parents' intervention. While we're not ready for a relationship with him, we respect his efforts to change and grow on his own terms. Ellie, meanwhile, has been telling a different version of events to anyone who will listen, painting herself as the victim of a family that refuses to forgive. Her narrative has found little traction, though, as the wedding day events had too many witnesses to be rewritten. Her attempts to maintain social connections in our community have largely failed, and there are rumors that she's considering moving to another city. My aunt and uncle have retreated from family gatherings, claiming they need time to process everything. The irony of them needing space after trying to force their way into our celebration isn't lost on anyone. Their absence has actually allowed real healing to begin among the rest of the family. Looking towards the future, Rebecca and I feel stronger for having weathered this storm together. We're expecting our first child next spring, and the experience has helped us clarify exactly what kind of family environment we want to create. We're committed to teaching our child about genuine relationships, honest communication, and the courage to maintain boundaries, lessons that came at a high price but proved invaluable. The thank you cards we sent out for our wedding included a note that took on special meaning. Thank you for showing us that true family is built on respect, love, and choice. Your presence made our celebration perfect, not despite the unexpected changes, but because of how we weathered them together. As we close this chapter of our lives, we're grateful for the clarity it brought. Sometimes it takes a dramatic attempt at forced reconciliation to show you who your real family is. And it's not always who you share DNA with, but who shows up for you with honest hearts and genuine support. Our story continues to remind us that while we can't choose all of our relatives, we can choose how we handle their actions and who we allow to be part of our journey. In the end, the family we've built is stronger than any carefully orchestrated reunion could ever be, because it's built on truth, respect, and authentic connections rather than manipulation and forced forgiveness. Edit. As we approach the 3-month mark since our wedding, new understandings continue to emerge. One significant development involves Owen's children. Through family channels, we learned that he's been having difficult but necessary conversations with his young kids about integrity and accountability. He's made the conscious decision not to shield them from his past mistakes, age appropriately explaining why some family members aren't in their lives. This approach, so different from his parents' pattern of denial and manipulation, suggests that perhaps real change is possible. The ripple effects have reached even distant family members. Cousins from across the country have started sharing their own stories of experiencing manipulation from my aunt and uncle over the years. One cousin revealed how they had tried to orchestrate her choice of college to keep her close to Owen when he was struggling with his first year of university. Another shared how they had attempted to pressure him into offering Owen a job at his startup, using family loyalty as leverage. These stories created a pattern that stretched back decades, showing how their enabling behavior had affected more than just our immediate family circle. Rebecca's influence on how I view family dynamics has been transformative. Her background in child development has helped us understand how patterns of manipulation and enabling behavior can be passed down through generations. We've made a conscious decision to break these cycles, starting with how we plan to raise our own child. We're already discussing ways to foster genuine relationships and emotional honesty from the start. The community's response to our story has been overwhelming. Several couples planning their own weddings have reached out, sharing similar stories of family pressure and manipulation. We become unexpected advocates for maintaining healthy boundaries during wedding planning, emphasizing that it's okay to prioritize your own well-being over family expectations. Rebecca's brother has even added a section to his event planning business, specifically focused on helping couples navigate complex family dynamics during wedding preparations. These past months have shown us that sometimes the most painful experiences can lead to the most necessary growth. While we never wanted our wedding to become a catalyst for such dramatic family changes, the clarity and strength we've gained have made us better prepared for building our own family's future. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.